So, as a research student, you should also be knowing about the research onion. The research onion is actually a pictorial way of how elements of research are interconnected, or वो दिखाया गया है, या it's a diagram that actually tells you not only about the different elements but also कि वो आपस में किस तरह उनकी hierarchy क्या है, वो किस layer में कौन सी चीज़ exist करती है. So let's have a look, because if you understand research onion, तो जो जितने हमने research से relevant heavy going जो jargon इस्तेमाल किया है, या जो concepts understand किए हैं, तो we try to understand them in a sense कि वो उनकी hierarchy क्या है, how they are interconnected, या वो किस तरीके से structured है. So we talked about research paradigms. तो हम लोगों ने देखा कि research paradigms actually is a philosophy, and a research student, you should be knowing कि जब भी आप कोई research करने जा रहे हो तो उसकी philosophical underpinnings क्या हैं. So we talked about ontology, we talked about epistemology, or we talked about methodology. So, all those three things actually constitute the philosophy जो कि underpin करती है आपकी किसी भी research endeavor को, right? And I also told you about कि आपकी जो research paradigms हैं या epistemological या ontological beliefs हैं, वो dictate करती हैं जो आप method आप इस्तेमाल करोगे in carrying out that research, right? And we also talked about this concept के approaches कौन सी हैं of research. We talked about quantitative research approaches, and we also talked about qualitative research approaches. हम लोगों ने एक और concept पढ़ा उसके अंदर inductive reasoning का, deductive reasoning का. तो how approaches quantitative, qualitative, inductive, deductive, and research paradigm, वो कैसे, how do you put all these different elements of research and put them together? The research onion will tell you that. इसी तरह जो actual जो research में जो iceberg की मैंने आपको analogy दी थी कि research methods is actually the tip of the iceberg, जो कि हमें research literature हम पढ़ें या कोई भी research study उठा लें तो we actually see in detail की description होती है कि what method they used, tool उन्होंने कौन सा इस्तेमाल किया in order to carry out their research, और उसकी description मौजूद होती है, right? And what we cannot see behind, which is underneath that tip of the iceberg, is this कि आपकी research paradigm क्या है, and what is the philosophical assumption that you undertake while doing your research. Our research methods में the tools, the tip of the iceberg that we see, उसके अंदर the method that already exists. By the way, this is not an exhaustive list of methods, लेकिन some of them जो कि ज़्यादा we might know them, we might be more familiar with them as compared to others. So research method experiments exist करते हैं, simulations, benchmark. Simulation is kind of experiment, or benchmark है where you evaluate against a standard, a phenomenon that is occurring in certain context against a standard. And then you have another method that's called archive analysis. You have surveys, case studies, action research is a method, and ethnography is a research method. So you have a lot of tool available जो कि आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं अपने research में. लेकिन जो tool available है, that is a method that you choose, that to some extent has to come from the research paradigm that you that the position that you take, the philosophy that you think of your research की underpin करती है, उसके around research method to some extent researchers choose करते हैं. So we know the approaches are quantitative and qualitative. That means the research method, that there are going to be some research method जो कि आपको purely quantitative terms में they're going to be quantitative tools in order to arrive at the solution to your research problem, and there are going to be some qualitative tools, your research method, that are going to that you're going to use to carry out your qualitative research. Or there are going to be some tools जो कि both qualitative भी इस्तेमाल हो सकते हैं और quantitative approach में भी इस्तेमाल हो सकते हैं. So the black ones that you see here over here, they are inherently quantitative in nature. experiment studies करेंगी, research method, that is going to be quantitative. Simulations, you benchmark भी है, you know, when you compare, an example could be when you compare a process in a software house to another software house, या फिर you know किसी standard के against आप उसको evaluate करो, and that evaluation has to be in quantities. So benchmark is also quantitative in nature. On the other hand, have a look at case studies. Case studies के अंदर inherently it will give you a qualitative outcome. इस तरह action research भी it's a qualitative research method. Ethnography is also a qualitative in nature. And archive analysis is when you know you go and जो आपके पास documents मौजूद हैं, आप उनका analysis करते हो. So artifact analysis and surveys, they can be both quantitative and qualitative. Survey की example मैं आपको देती हूँ. You can have a questionnaire based survey जो कि आपको in the end quantification देगा. We will talk about that in detail when we actually focus on the survey method specifically. But for understanding how they come in both, I'll give you a small peep into what a survey is. So survey या तो questionnaire based survey हो सकता है, you know, in the end it will give you a quantification of the research that you're undertaking, या फिर ये interviews, structured interviews भी हो सकते हैं कि you know at the end of the day you come up using surveys, you did survey लेकिन आपको जो data मिला है that is qualitative in nature, and the outcome of your research is या जो results हैं वो quantified नहीं है, they are you know subjective, they're qualitative in nature. So some research methods are going to be quantitative in nature and some are going to be qualitative in nature. So now the question is, how does this research paradigm, quantitative, qualitative approaches and research methods, and you know कब आप research करते हो, how does it all fit together? So the researcher onion is one of the good example जो कि अभी recently I think so it's a recent development, पिछले एक decade में ही research onion का जो है ना concept आया है, and that actually tells you the how these different things जो structure हुई हैं जो हमने पढ़ी हैं. So have a look at that. At the research onion tells you कि आपकी research जो है ना it has an onion structure where the outer layers represent the philosophy जो कि आप ले रहे हो to undertake your research. So the paradigms comes in the outer layer of this onion, जिसके अंदर you know positivism है, critical realism है, interpretivism है, and pragmatism है, जो हमने 4 research paradigms के बारे में पढ़ा था. And then there's this approaches, which is यहाँ पे उन्होंने you know one thing before I further go into details of this research onion, as a research student you should be knowing कि sometimes जो यहाँ पे इसको represent करी इन layers को they you know researchers use different terms for it. For instance यहाँ पे लिखा हुआ है approach to theory development. It could be approaches to research as well. So some of the terms are not standardized in research, but they represent almost the same you know sometimes overlapping things and sometimes the same thing, but you know for a research student you should be knowing about overall structure of how research is undertaken, या जो research के different elements हैं वो कैसे, how do they come together. So we know about the qualitative and quantitative approaches, और इसके अंदर one of the logical approach to undertake your research is deductive and the other one is inductive. There are others, but let's just for the sake of brevity focus on deduction and induction. The quantitative, we talked about the quantitative approach to research, and that is deductive in nature. That means you have something जो कि generic है या theory है, and you make hypothesis based on that theory, and theory for आप test करते हो and then analyze करते हो, and you know there's a quantification after that. On the other hand, induction is where you know you have pieces of information, या pieces of observation, या data के पास है, you try to fit that data together in terms of if there's any pattern, और अगर pattern आया तो you know you sort of make some propositions या sort of a framework of hypothesis कि ऐसा हो सकता है, and that leads towards the theory development. So deduction, it starts from theory and it ends with quantification. Over here it starts with some observation and information, and it might end up in the development of the theory. So this is the two approaches that we logical approaches to undertake our research, जो कि quantitative in nature हो सकती है, qualitative in nature हो सकती है. Deduction is mostly quantitative and induction is qualitative. So theory to approaches come after the layer of the philosophy. जब आपने अपने philosophical point of view को establish कर लिया, then comes कि आप कौन सी approach लोगे उस philosophy के around जिसके through आप research अपनी conduct करोगे. ठीक. And the third is the over here it says कि it's a methodological choice. यहाँ पे कंफ्यूज नहीं करना इसको मेथडोलॉजी से, बिकॉज मेथडोलॉजी कम्स हियर कि आपके वो कौन से प्रिंसिपल्स एंड प्रोसीजर्स हैं जो कि किस आपकी रिसर्च जो आप करने जा रहे हो आप उनको फॉलो करोगे, राइट. सो हियर मेथडोलॉजिकल चॉइस इज एक्चुअली अबाउट द डिज़ाइन and your choice of it, because see this एक research करने को you can choose from multiple you can have a choice of multiple methods. तो यहाँ या फिर how they are interrelated. तो यहाँ पे methodological choice is actually meaning कि आप डिज़ाइन अपनी research को कैसे डिज़ाइन करोगे. So either it could be कि आपकी research डिज़ाइन का हिस्सा ये है कि you're only going to use one quantitative method जो कि इधर quantitative realm से लिया गया या quantitative approach से लिया गया. तो जो quantitative method आपके डिज़ाइन का हिस्सा कि आप सिर्फ एक ही मेथड इस्तेमाल करोगे और वो quantitative in nature होगा. Or it could be a mono method that is qualitative. एक मेथड लोगे लेकिन वो qualitative होगा. या फिर आपके डिज़ाइन का हिस्सा है कि no, the research you're trying to undertake, the design that you're going to have of that research is going to be a multi-method quantitative. एक मेथड नहीं बल्कि मल्टीपल मेथड. तो एक से ज़्यादा मेथड आप इस्तेमाल करोगे टू अंडरटेक योर रिसर्च. या फिर एक और डिज़ाइन आपका हो सकता है मल्टी मेथड क्वालिटेटिव भी मेथड्स होंगे